Son says he's done with my favouritism. My stepson 19 got a new car from his bio mom. She and her family are well off, and unlike me, they could afford to buy a car. I'm happy for my stepson, but my son, nearly adult, isn't. He complains about how unfair it is for my husband to let his ex gift their son a car, but not him. It's unreasonable, I know, but teenage years are mostly hard, and it's even harder to expect the kids to be reasonable. My son wanted to take part in driving the car as a compromise, or else we would have to get rid of it. I sat him down to explain that the car was his stepbrother's property, and he shouldn't be expecting to drive it unless he's given permission. He was having none of it, and kept giving his ultimatums, saying he either shared the car with his stepbrother or the car goes when my husband confronted him. My son went and did so much damage to the car. He threw paint on it, ruined the lights, and damaged the front of it completely. My stepson had a breakdown when he saw her in the morning, and my husband was beyond livid after seeing the footage from our driveway. Cam and my son damaging the car. My husband confronted my son later, and all my son did was laugh and give him the middle finger. I went to take all of his camp savings for this summer to pay for the damages and gave them to my husband. My son found out and went nuts on everyone in the house. He accused me of stealing, then trying to please my husband for intimacy. Then told his stepbrother that he warned him, and so he shouldn't be blamed. He also said it was my fault for not getting him a car, or getting my husband to get him a car in the first place to avoid favouritism and conflict. He's been spending the majority of his time in his room, refusing to come out or to eat anything. I'm worried about him not eating because he did this once and ended up in the hospital for low blood pressure. So am I the idiot for using my son's savings, not the idiot your son needs professional help? This is beyond teen angst or hormones at his age. He should be able to comprehend that his stepbrother has a separate parent to who he has no connection and who can and will provide for her son. And sometimes this includes gifts. Your son should be grateful that his stepbrother didn't involve the police. What he did is a felony in many jurisdictions, and at his age, he would likely be treated as an adult. I'm not even gonna lie, I stopped reading after you said your almost adult son gave you an ultimatum about someone else's property, tuned back in to see the damage and to ask myself, what is wrong with you to think you were an idiot? It's called the consequences of his actions. I don't know how he even felt. He was in a position to offer an ultimatum to begin with. Tell him to get over himself, and if he ends up in hospital for trying to starve himself with a tantrum, he definitely needs therapy, regardless if he starves himself or not. The kid has no boundaries, no remorse, and even thinks it's funny, and everyone else's fault. He needs to learn that he has no entitlement to anything he has to work for, everything he gets, unless someone gifts him something. Otherwise, it has to be earned. He has serious problems, and as he gets older, he's headed for a life of crime if he doesn't get this entitlement out of his head. You are the idiot for letting things get to this place with your son. Why does he think he can make demands and call shots in the household above the parents, especially when it comes to someone else's property? Why does he think it would be appropriate for his stepbrother's bio mom to buy him a car? Why is he being allowed to sit and pout in his room? He lost his money to pay for the damage done to the car. That does not nullify his acts. However, it just fixes the damage. There still needs to be consequences for his actions. Otherwise, you're just teaching him that he can buy his way out of atrocious and illegal choices, which in the real world would ruin his life. My fiancé's. New fiancé hive 29 male, known my good friend Sarah 29 females. Since we were both 7 years old, we grew up together and were very close. Sarah is very beautiful and stylish. She's working as a bridal consultant and a stylist, and she's in the fashion industry. So her sense of style is immaculate, my fiancé. Jane 27 female is a lawyer. She has a more casual chic style, while Sarah has a more glamorous style. And I realise how both women's work and lifestyles also affect their sense of style. For the record, I adore my fiancée. I've been with her since she was 20 and I was 22. I proposed to her a year ago and she's the nicest and most supportive woman I've ever met. So before anyone says I maybe attracted Sarah. Of my fiancée, remember this Sarah is a good friend, but we're not compatible as a couple at all. Her life goals do not align with mine, and her lifestyle is exhausting for me, while Jane, on the other hand, and I are compatible in every aspect. Sarah is what we call conventionally attractive, while Jane has a unique kind of beauty. Sarah is the kind of woman who will make everyone turn their heads and stare at her whenever she enters a room she's always been, like that Jane didn't seem to mind at first. But later on, she started getting bothered whenever I over-complimented Sarah, but still didn't make a big deal of it. A friend of Sarah and mine got engaged over the weekend and had his engagement party with his new fiancée. Sarah was invited, so was I with my fiancé. Once Sarah walked in, everyone turned to look at her. It was one of the best outfits she's worn in one of the best hairstyles she's had. I went to greet her, and I couldn't stop complimenting her all night long because she truly outdid herself. I noticed Jane sitting alone later, and I went to ask her what was wrong. She replied that I'm ridiculous for asking as if I don't know already. Then, my friend's new fiancé. My friend pulled me to the side and told me that they'd spotted my fiancé crying in the hallway. A while ago, she told them that she felt like she was never going to be as good and pretty as Sarah in my eyes, and she felt humiliated and jealous. My friend's fiancé also told me that what Sarah wore to the engagement party was beyond inappropriate. But she wouldn't say anything because she didn't want to stir drama, and that at some point, Sarah needs to stop trying to have all the attention to herself, constantly trying to overshadow everyone. I the idiot, my dude. I can hear you salivating over Sarah from here. Did you ever consider, maybe don't do that to your fiancée Sarah's beautiful, stunning, glamorous? We get it, but you can close your mouth about it at near 29. You're old enough to know that what you say has a purpose and has an impact. So what exactly is the purpose of you raving about Sarah's looks? Why do you do that? What do you think is the impact of doing that? Like, this is not so hard to figure out? Bro, you are the idiot. Honestly, the way he talks about Sarah, I'd be uncomfortable with his behaviour if I was Sarah. Never mind how disrespectful it is to Jane. A single "you look nice" is more than sufficient for anyone. Any more than that gets creepy and annoying fast. Especially when the person you're complimenting is not your partner. What the heck, you couldn't stop? Yeah, so basically you're attracted Sarah, but have decided Jane is a better fit for you. Fine, but there's no need to make it so obvious and insult and humiliate Jane. Control yourself. You're a grown man. No wonder your fiancé feels down in the dumps about herself. Did you fawn all over her? Like you did. Your friend? Did you tell her she looked beautiful? Anything? It's also interesting. You didn't notice she was upset to the point of crying until someone else had to clue you in. You were too busy obsessing over another woman. I lost my leg. I 22 female have a prosthetic leg. I lost my leg when I was 3 years old in an accident, and honestly, I don't remember a time without the prosthetic. It's just normal to me. I've been seeing a guy 25 for a couple of months, but the subject of my leg hadn't come up yet a few days ago. I was having dinner at his place as he cooked for me when he was setting out the food. He bumped into the table and the vase went flying off and smashed against my prosthetic leg. He freaked out in a blind panic, wanting me to roll up my trouser leg in case I was hurt, asking me repeatedly if I was okay. I admit I was startled and relieved it had been that leg and couldn't help laughing, and I reassured him it was fine over and over again, but he didn't believe me and demanded to see. So to prove it, I removed my prosthetic leg, showing it to him, and explained the situation and how I'd lost my leg when I was little. I then told him it was fine if it was that leg, and I was just relieved it wasn't the other. He got upset with me for laughing, clearly embarrassed by the situation, and was more upset that I hadn't told him about my leg yet. I apologized and explained. It's not exactly an easy thing to work into conversation organically, and I'd have for sure given him a heads up before we slept together for the first time, as no one wants to discover that the hard way he cleaned up the glass and I put my leg back on. And we had dinner, though the mood was ruined and he was clearly unhappy with me. Later, I got some text from him saying he felt really upset that I hadn't told him earlier and how he'd been worried and I'd laughed. He has said he needs time to think about some things. My laughter wasn't at him, but more shock of the situation. And I tried to explain that, but he's asked me to give him some space I'd been planning to tell him. But it's not like you can just say, hey, oh, by the way, I only have one leg that cool. Naturally, in a conversation, was I the idiot? Here, no idiots here. He was shocked. Then more shocked, you were surprised and laughed and told him something he didn't know. People laugh at funerals. People cry at inopportune moments. Humans are complicated either. He'll get over this. This should be quick, or he'll reveal himself to be a dramatic festival of self-absorption. Either way, you should know by tomorrow, and you did nothing wrong. You are the idiot 2 months up, and your disability has never come up. Not once in 2 months. I don't believe you. I think you've been hiding it. Sure, it's awkward to bring it up on a first date, and why should you need to? But after seeing each other a few times a week for 2 months and calling him your boyfriend, and he doesn't even know you have a prosthetic leg, it's not that hard to bring up in conversation. Everyone is going to say, oh, it's fine. Why should he be upset for not knowing that's ableist? But he's your boyfriend of 2 months, and he doesn't know you have a prosthetic leg. You're hiding it from him because you don't trust him, not to leave you for it. Well, the only problem I see is you saying you didn't know how to tell him about your leg, but you were okay with just pulling it off at the moment. So there were no other opportunities. He definitely shouldn't care that you have a prosthetic leg, but his reaction and need for space are justified. My neighbours want my car. I, female 29, moved to a new neighbourhood almost 2 years ago. I live alone with no partner or kids, but my mom, 80, does live with me. Part of the year, 6 to 8 months. I really like this neighbourhood and haven't had any issues until now. It's a very tight-knit community. Neighbourhood barbecues at least once a month. The kids all play together after school. Etc. My next-door neighbours to one side have a severely disabled child. She's a young child, completely non-verbal and wheelchair-bound. They have nurses who help care for her. But I know her parents are struggling understandably, so her mom had to quit her job and is a full-time carer for her and their other older child. I've gotten relatively close to them. The parents and their lovely neighbours, their older child is respectful, and honestly one of the sweetest children in the neighbourhood, for my mom. I bought a minivan and had it customised to have a ramp and wheelchair tie down so that I can easily transport her and her mobility equipment, usually an ECV or wheelchair, when she's staying with me the other 4 or 6 months of the year, when my mom spends time with her sister and friends in our home country. The car sits unused primarily unless I have a reason to move bigger things that won't fear my daily driver. I noticed that the neighbours didn't have a car suitable for transporting their daughter without taking her out of the wheelchair and fighting to keep all her tubes and wires in place. So I offered them my minivan if I wasn't using it to transport my mom. We've had an agreement in place that has worked well for us for almost 18 months. But now they've asked if they can use the car to go on a road trip. The road trip is scheduled to last just over 2 weeks. The main reason for the trip is to take the kids to Disney World for the first time. My problem is that my mom is supposed to arrive a couple of days after they would leave. I asked if they could delay the trip by just a few days so I could at least get her from the airport with minimal stress. They are adamant they leave on the dates. They want to. I said no, I need to be able to comfortably get my mom from the airport. And after a 12-hour flight, I wanted to be comfortable and not have to worry about getting in and out of the car. They called me selfish, and I've been ousted by the rest of the community. I wasn't invited to the last BBQ, and no one says hi or waves back at me on the street anymore. The neighbour kids who come by to see my dogs and run around the yard haven't been by in almost 2 weeks. I tried to text the neighbours, but my texts went undelivered, so I think they blocked me. I feel like I'm living in a hostile environment now. And it's so uncomfortable. Should I just cave and let them take my car? Not the idiot, and don't cave. Unfortunately, it appears your friendly neighbourhood is actually made up of a group of false friends. You didn't ask for anything unreasonable, but they wouldn't adjust for you even though you were incredibly generous with them. This neighbourhood has turned toxic, and if it's possible, I suggest you find a community of more honest people. Also, who the heck bases their vacation around someone else's car? The audacity to call up selfish after a year and a half of letting Moosavan just to be nice, let alone trying to find a compromise, that's outrageous. You're a good person. Uppy, don't let the idiots win. I also wouldn't be surprised if they change some of the stories to make themselves look better. I tell all the neighbours your side of the story, whether you move or not. This is a whole other level of ridiculous, choosy beggar behaviour. I'm sorry that your neighbourhood has turned on you. I think you should rescind all offers to use the van period because their behaviour is disgusting. Also, if they can afford a road trip to Disney World for 2 weeks, then I kind of doubt they're as hard off as they've represented themselves. Hopi, I think these neighbours have taken advantage of your generous nature. A 2-week trip to Disney World for 4 people will cost several grand. And that's if they pack their own food and stay in properties far from the resort, instead of saving that money to buy a van of their own. They think they should be able to blow it on vacation and demand you provide their transportation for free. Why should they ever buy a vehicle of their own if they can bully you into providing a free ride? My husband gave me a gift. My husband recently went Mother's Day shopping. He picked his mum out a foot massager as a gift. He brought it home and made a big fuss about how cool it was. I pointed out that his mom already had one. We'd gotten her one a couple of months back, but it was nice for him to get her something. He instantly said, "Oh well, you can have it." Then I told him I didn't want one, but thanked him anyway, and told him that if he kept the receipt, we could just take it back to the store. He agreed, and I thought that was the end of it. Mother's Day was last weekend, and he came up to me and presented me with a gift. I opened it, and it was the foot massager he had gotten to give his mum. I thanked him, but deep down, I was disappointed by it. He'd given me a gift he got for his mum. I called one of my friends to vent about it and said how annoyed I was that he'd done it, and she said I should be grateful he got me anything, so I told him that he didn't get me something. He got his mom something, and when it turned out she'd already got one, he gave it to me. Instead, she said I was acting like an idiot. Not the idiot. Father's Day is coming up. Wrap it up. You told him before you didn't want that gift. Before it was even your gift. So it's not like he gave it to you brand new and you said, I don't want this. He already knew that, but didn't want to return the gift for something else. You even thanked him anyways. So I can totally understand why you feel disappointed. It takes real balls to give someone a gift. They told you they didn't want. I'm sad for your friend that her standards for relationships are so low she thinks you should gladly accept crumbs. You should continue to expect what you deserve, which is people in your life who treat you with thoughtfulness, kindness and respect, both from your friends and your partner. Personally, I don't think husbands need to get their wives gifts for Mother's Day. Helping the kids get one or make one is what they should do, but don't pretend you're giving a gift just because you're too lazy to return something.